No, I don't think I've seen this. I've never even heard of this story. Scamming poor people out of $4 billion. Holy shit. They scam every poor person in the world? My god.
Meet Joe Low. At just 28 years old, he managed to steal over $4.4 billion in straight cash from the Malaysian government,
Holy shit.
making him have more spending power than anyone else on Earth. This is a story of how an average teenager from an average town became an international playboy, financed the Wolf of Wall Street movie, bought his very own private jets, stole billions from a sovereign wealth fund, becoming a global fugitive in the process that's still on the run, all before his 35th birthday.
And now, Joe Low is on the lam.
Low is wanted to face criminal charges over the 1MDB scandal.
The huge mega yacht, that part of our money should be returned
to
Malaysia.
Let me explain. Joe Low.
Alright, I don't mean to blue ball you, but just give me 1 second. I gotta do something real quick. I'll be right back. Oh, also a heads up. I will be staying on Twitch. That's my big announcement. I re-signed with Twitch. So with that comes the responsibility of ads when I have to do something, so just a heads up. I'm not blowing up a car or anything. Be right back. Hold on. Okay, be right back. Alright, I'm fucking back. Exit tier 1 mental mirror, and the resub cosmic drifted in tier 1 Dr. Oh wait. Drare heel. I'm sure I fucked your name up, sorry. Thanks for resub Mickey. But I did try. Alright, let's ride.
Was born into a well-off family. Definitely not billionaire kind of rich, but the I sent my kids to international boarding school kind of rich. His family put a lot of importance on education and sent him to some of the best schools in England and the US, which meant Joe Low rubbed shoulders with actual wealthy families, Middle Eastern royalty, old money trust fund babies, and the kind of kids that would expect a supercar and a performance by Britney Spears for their birthday. But despite going to the same school, Joe never really felt like he belonged. When his friends came to visit him in Malaysia, he used his dad's friends' houses and luxury yachts to pretend they were his own. He made friends with other Malaysian rich kids, and even called himself the Malaysian prince at school. All Joe Low ever wanted was to be accepted into high society. He would spend hours researching cool music and hairstyles, blew off school, and did anything he could to make his rich friends respect him. But it was never enough.
You telling me this guy was researching cool music and hairstyles and then went with like the most generic NPC hairstyle imaginable? Are you kidding me? Bro, he could have done like a giant mohawk? Cornrows? Man, I don't know. What the fuck is this? No frosted tips or anything? It's like he didn't even try.
Styles, blew off school, and did anything he could to make his rich friends respect him more. But it was never enough. He was still an outsider. So when he graduated, he decided to change that. He used his years of lying, faking being rich, and doing anything to fit in with the elites to set up his very own business that would one day make him a billionaire.
Give some coffee.
You see, his life among the wealthy elite had taught him one thing. Wealth and influence, or even just the appearance of it, opens doors. And this lesson would make Joe Low one of the greatest con men the world has ever seen.
Joe Low is a great name for someone who's gonna scam people for $4 billion. It just really rolls off the tongue. Thanks to resub vintage in the prime can. Thanks to sub 13. And the resub Chomper and
Joe Low was born on a small Malaysian island called Penang. His family came from China, and his dad had made millions investing in a clothing manufacturing business. So Joe and his siblings were sent off to Harrow School in London, one of the most prestigious schools in the world, founded all the way back in 1572. Here, Joe got his first taste of real riches. His family's villa and millions seemed like a lot in Malaysia, but next to the kids of Middle Eastern oil tycoons and European royalty, the small wealth his family had started to look like chump change. He knew that if he could just make the right friends in the right places, he would be one step closer to joining the wealthy elite himself. So he lied about almost everything. About how much money his family had, who he was, where he lived, anything to get in with the rich kids. And it worked. One of his best friends at Harrow was Riza Aziz, the stepson of a Malaysian government official who would become essential to his scheme. For university, he chose the Wharton Business School in Pennsylvania, not because of the world-class curriculum or teachers, but because that's where Donald Trump and Warren Buffett had attended. For his 21st birthday, he spent $40,000 of his dad's money to book out a nightclub and an open bar. He made everyone that was invited feel like VIPs because his school years had taught him another lesson. Everyone craves to feel important. Make people feel important, and they'll become addicted to the drug that is you. So he played on that. And when he wasn't busy wooing the rich kids, he was plagiarizing reports from the Wall Street Journal for his school's newspaper. For some reason, no one noticed.
Why is that helpful?
And Joe got the reputation of being a genius stock picker, all the while copying word for word what other people wrote. His plan was working. He was making all the right friends and building up his socialite persona far away from home. So when he graduated, instead of looking for work at an investment firm or bank, he decided to start a company of his own. Little did he know the opportunities that were about to come his way.
Next we sub Kaiser and Connor. Hey Connor. Is that real Connor? That's cute.
Joe's very first company was the Winton Group. He was planning to win tons of money, Winton, so the name stuck. He used his new Middle Eastern friends to get a meeting with the guys who ran Abu Dhabi's sovereign wealth fund. You can think of a sovereign wealth fund as basically a government's hedge fund. They try to grow that money through investments to, in theory, reinvest back into the country. And Joe Low getting his foot into the door of Abu Dhabi's sovereign wealth fund was a really big deal because it's one of the biggest sovereign wealth funds in the world. Today it has nearly $700 billion, which is as big as Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. At his initial meeting with the fund, Joe realized something crazy. One of the biggest sovereign wealth funds in the world was run by just two young guys, both in their late 20s at the time.
What? You're telling me this guy is in his late 20s? What? No, I don't buy that. Are you kidding me? No chance. At the time. I figured he would have used like a young photo of him. This I could believe. I guess this is like a modern photo of him then? I thought they'd take like a picture of him at the time.
Two young guys, both in their late 20s at the time. This got him thinking. Malaysia had a sovereign wealth fund, but nothing like Abu Dhabi's. Abu Dhabi's could also borrow money to invest. You could invest with leverage. If these two 20-something euros could run Abu Dhabi's, why couldn't he run Malaysia's? But to do that, he would need someone with a lot of influence to back him up. But luckily, his years of networking had given him the perfect person. His best friend from school's stepfather, the Malaysian government official Najib Razak. At the time, Najib was Malaysia's deputy prime minister, just one step away from the top position. Even if he didn't have the power to hand over Malaysia's money to Joe, he was in a high enough position to give him all the support he needed. Joe Low just needed to get his attention. By luck, around the same time Joe Low was seriously looking for a way to get into Najib's good graces, Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund, called Khazanah, was looking for investors for a construction project. Joe immediately called his friends in Abu Dhabi and got them to agree to a meeting. Cleverly, he offered Najib all the credit if the deal went through, and when it eventually did go through, he became the deputy prime minister's favorite money man. Najib's newfound popularity for making deals happen helped him become the prime minister in 2009. Joe Low had bided his time and paid his dues. Now it was time to cash in.
Can you please change this video to something else not so boring? What do you want, Krispy Kreme? Scamming $4 billion is apparently not exciting. What do you want? Is it gonna be like some meme compilation? Best anime fights of 2019? On you, Krispy Kreme. What do you want me to see? Give me something exciting. What's on your mind? This is your time, Cream. You put it in caps locked and tagged me, so you really wanted me to see it. So what do you want? Thanks to the resub Omega Wolf. NFL Big Hits compilation. Thanks to the bits Sinister. They didn't leave, they're still here. What are you talking about? I see him in the chat. He just hasn't said anything. Thanks to the gift sub, What Champ? The Prime Dander. I saw the Final Fantasy X video. Yeah, he said 2 seconds, I'm looking it up, which means it's going to be trash. It's a bit sweeper, but I'm excited. This is the resub Rincept. Thanks to resub Lord Cheese. No, I didn't go to Gasparilla. Fuck no. Not this year. Could you sell your chicken recipe / cookbooks? No. I couldn't do that. That would go against everything my mother's cooking stands for. Okay, this guy just... he's really fucking panicking or something, I don't know. Exit resub resume.
After Najib became prime minister, Joe Low found himself in a position of unlimited influence, and he wasted no time using it. As soon as Prime Minister Najib was sworn in, he approached him with the idea of creating a new sovereign wealth fund that would work just like the ones in the Middle East. Najib had complete trust in Joe's abilities, so he agreed. They called it the One Malaysia Development Berhad, or the 1MDB Fund. It was supposed to invest in green energy and tourism jobs. Najib was the fund's chairman, and Joe Low an unofficial advisor. Joe had the prime minister in the palm of his hand. Joe had helped him reach the highest point in the Malaysian government, so whatever Joe requested was as good as done. Just imagine the kind of power you could have if you had the prime minister of any country in the palm of your hands. Just 2 months after 1MDB was created,
but he didn't
it closed
really
its first
do
deal.
anything.
Joe Low had
It seems
convinced
so
Najib and
easy
his
to
wife
scam
that he
someone.
had the key to Middle Eastern investments and introduced them to a Saudi Arabian prince. The only problem was this prince was no real prince and had no access to the oil money 1MDB were chasing after. The prince and Joe discussed 1MDB investing in the national oil company Petro Saudi, but here's the thing, the money they made wouldn't just go towards developing Malaysia, but it would also go towards the prime minister. The prime minister would be able to use the money for whatever political purpose he wanted. The idea of so much money at the prime minister's disposal must have been tempting, because it didn't take that much time for Najib to agree, and the deal of a lifetime was on. 1MDB would invest $1 billion into Petro Saudi. Just 1 month after meeting for the first time, the joint venture between 1MDB and Petro Saudi was signed. Joe Low had just successfully gotten permission to transfer a whopping $1 billion in cash from Malaysia's bank account to another bank account. But here's the thing,
why?
since Joe was the one in charge of transferring that cash, he could obfuscate the transaction in a way where it looked like the Saudis got their $1 billion, but in reality, it went into his own pockets. See, Joe was smart. He had filled 1MDB staff with people loyal to him. So when the time came, they arranged for just 300 mil of that $1 billion to be transferred into the actual joint venture account with Petro Saudi, while the rest of the $700 million flowed not to the Petro Saudi joint venture, but to Good Start Limited, a shell company with a bank account in Switzerland. The shell company was based in the Seychelles, a tiny yet infamous secrecy haven. Good Start Limited was what's called a bearer share company, meaning that whoever held the physical stock certificate, whoever held that literal piece of paper in their hands, owned the company. And who do you think held onto the single stock certificate of Good Start Limited? Joe Low. And this shell company that is very hard to connect to Joe Low just got $700 million richer. In exchange for the magic trick, Joe Low paid over $100 million to his 2 friends in Abu Dhabi. And after it was all said and done, Joe Low has successfully pulled off one of the greatest financial frauds in history, and was now halfway there to becoming a billionaire. How did he get away with this? He explained that Malaysia had to repay a debt before the joint venture could continue, and Good Start Limited was actually a company owned by the Saudis. I mean, I don't understand how all this high finance works. I guess I'll just believe what our sovereign wealth manager says. But Joe Low was far from done.
I just can't believe how easy it must be. All he does is just say like, yeah, I'll do it. And then you're like, okay, cool. They don't even like ask anything else.
With one successful con under his belt, Joe started looking for more. 600 million was great and all, but there was still opportunity to make even more. so Low focused on his next targets. Tim Lesner, head of Goldman Sachs Asia division. He had given him the special treatment he learned in school, he flew him out to Abu Dhabi, got him meetings with one of the richest sheiks in the world, and made sure he had the complete luxury experience. Why was Tim Lesner a target? Because he was about to get $1MDB $3.5 billion from bond sales to buy coal power plants. They were going to package these power plants into one company and go public on the Malaysia Stock Exchange. Joe hoped this money would help cover 1MDB's losses. The only problem was, 1MDB had no credit rating, so bond sales were almost impossible. Which is where Tim Lesner came in. He knew the right people to bribe to get the company listed, and that's exactly what he did.
Super Bowl promo called
over the next few
Everyone's
years,
Here.
Goldman Sachs gave 1MDB over $5 billion.
How would there already be a Super Bowl promo out? They usually don't do that till like the day before. Let's see. Super Bowl halftime show. This is an 18-minute video from like a random channel with 9 views. This is absolutely just your channel. But nice, we fucking made it!
$1 billion from bond sales. Every time they sent the money, a lot of it would be siphoned off into offshore accounts owned by Joe Low. He paid the Prime Minister and Tim Lesner's their cuts and kept the rest for himself. Joe Low was still in his 20s at the time, and he had played his scheme so well that he had governments and massive corporations eating out the palm of his hand, and his offshore bank accounts ballooned to billions. Now it was time to enjoy the fruits of his labor.
And then he funds Wolf of Wall Street. So he just took $4.4 billion from governments. I don't know why he's saying poor people. It seems like it just comes from governments. For most of the billionaires you see on the Forbes list, most of their net worth is tied up in company stock, like Elon with Tesla or Bezos with Amazon stock. But Joe Low was different. His $4.4 billion was in straight hard liquid cash. He had more spending power than anyone on Earth. Joe Low had finally made it. He was rich, and not just comfortable kind of rich. Oh no, Joe Low was obscenely rich. And now it was time to party. He would buy out clubs, throw secret parties with people like Leonardo DiCaprio and Paris Hilton, and even gave Kim Kardashian a Ferrari as a wedding gift. He bought a private jet, luxury yachts, and multi-million-dollar mansions all over the US. But not even that was enough. In an incredibly ironic move, Joe Low pretty much financed the entire Wolf of Wall Street movie with money he stole from the Malaysian governments. Seriously, not making this up. He was such great friends with Leo that he gifted him millions of dollars of rare arts. Back in Malaysia, people were asking questions about the 1MDB fund and how the money was being used. But with the Prime Minister on his side, he didn't really have much to worry about. He bought the Prime Minister's wife millions in jewelry, financed the Prime Minister's political campaigns, and was always around when Najib needed advice. In exchange, the Prime Minister didn't care how much Joe took out of the fund. For Joe, there was nowhere to go but up. All he had to do was keep Najib in power, and he could keep spending. So he let the Prime Minister hand out millions to charities and throw massive campaign events on an almost limitless budget, all coming out of that shit must have been lit.
Joe Low was untouchable, or so he thought.
Till one day they asked, hey, what does Joe Low do? And no one had an answer. Like, I could immediately see how this all comes crumbling down.
By 2014, 1MDB was hemorrhaging money. It was losing more than it could explain. By this point, 1MDB went from apparently having billions to having $10 billion in debts and only $20 million in cash.
Ooh.
Joe Low pulled a desperate move. He tried to make 1MDB shares public, hoping that the public would come flocking to buy shares and give him some cash to work with. But that didn't work. He and Goldman Sachs' Tim Lesner had become so caught up in the money and success that they were blind to the trouble they were about to face. And trouble came quicker than expected. By 2015, a Swiss banker named Javier Justo leaked over 230,000 confidential emails to the press. In this massive data dump was the information that would bring Joe Low's scheme to light. A journalist for the Sarah Walker Report published an expose linking Joe Low
literally just said, "I'll do it,"
to the disappearing money of 1MDB. This news caused a civil war in the Malaysian government. Najib and Joe denied doing anything wrong, but that didn't help. Hundreds of thousands of Malaysians protested against Najib and his government, but Najib still had faith he could stay in power and that everything would be fine. But as expected, he lost the next election and was arrested for trying to flee the country in 2018. And Joe Low, he was long gone. Almost $1 billion of the money he stole had been seized, but Joe himself has disappeared into thin air.
Joe.
All we know for sure today is that he's somewhere in China. His love for luxury and fame didn't die down though, as he's sometimes spotted in clubs or private parties, only to disappear soon after.
Oh,
the last widely
cryptid.
reported sighting of him in the news was ironically in Wuhan back in February 2020, when the world was getting really riled up.
Thanks to the bit snow. He could be at any club at any
time. The reason why
time.
Joe Lo was able to pull off one of the greatest heists in history is because government funds are not transparent at all. Here is how it works.
Clearly.
The government takes money from you at the point of a gun in the form of taxes, and they'll say it's for important infrastructure. Think airports, hospitals, research facilities, or California's high-speed rail that
or
burned through
Joe
$100
Lo's
billion.
partying.
Projects that provide people with electricity, housing, water, healthcare, internet, transportation, etc. And then they funnel your money into private companies that build that infrastructure. The problem is, in many cases, the only companies that get these contracts are the friends and families of the politician. The public has no idea how this money is being spent. There is no incentive to spend the money well. Money just gets taken from your wallet and is transferred to the pockets of your politician's friends and family. The problem is these infrastructure projects, these, we'll call them public-private partnerships, or P3s for short, are actually really important. Not only because they provide crucial infrastructure for us, but because they can be an extremely profitable investment. But as we mentioned, public-private partnerships have only ever been available to the ultra-wealthy and are ripe with corruption, thanks to how not transparent they are. That's where something called Delta P3 comes in.
Fuck is that?
Much like startups that have democratized investing in things like fine arts, Delta P3 democratizes investing into these large-scale infrastructure projects that move the
stealth ad. Good for Joe! He really fucked us. But he's partying. Thanks to resub panties. And the tier 1 undead. So it was a Doritos commercial, eh? I'll look it up again. Nope. Still just brings up the same thing. I guess it was a C during the Super Bowl. Thanks to the Prime Spooked. Seeing the guy who gets rejected on TikTok Live happens every day. Thanks to Prime Viper. Usually they're pretty underwhelming. Why is the face cam so big? Is it? I can't tell on my end here. I'll make it smaller. I'm not on my normal setup. You keep saying do time-lapse of the future. You keep copy and pasting it in caps, and you can't just spell future correct? Like not one time you can't just change it to properly spell future? And I can't click links, so stop dropping a link, Crispy. Just tell me the name. Yeah, I've already seen the time-lapse of the future. This 12-year-old genius made 400K in 9 hours selling NFTs. Anyone can, really, it seems like. The only good NFT project is this guy. I've mentioned him multiple times, and I'll do it again. This fucking guy's king. This guy just takes a selfie of himself every day, sells it as an NFT, and he's made over $1 million. He is still popping off. This is the only NFT Chad, the only one I respect. Thanks to Prime, Tom York, and Stoxo, and the Bits Jelly Rolls. That makes me so butthurt. Just do it yourself, take some selfies. Mint it on the blockchain. You too could be the next, I don't remember his name. This guy.